Hey there, it's Tim Kelley with another in our series of videos about the new paradigm of business. So this is the last of several videos about different cultures, high-performance cultures that you can use to replace greed as the primary motivator for getting people to work in an organization. Certainly we have to pay them, but if we really want people to do their best, trying to bribe them isn't actually the most effective method, as we've discussed in earlier videos. This particular video is about a very powerful strategy which I call the growth and development culture. So one of the higher level Maslow's needs that was identified after Maslow's death was the need for growth and learning. That is, that we all desire to become better people, to learn, and to increase our skills over time. And this motivation, it's a higher order motivation, a subset of self-actualization, can provide powerful long-term motivation to people. So what does this mean in an organizational context? Well, the idea is that developing its employees becomes a primary activity of the organization. That is, we measure our success by how well our employees learn and grow and develop over time. So many companies would make the statement, well, our employees are our number one asset, and we seek to grow and develop our employees. They all have development plans, stuff like that. That's not really what I'm talking about, although that is all part of this. I'm talking about making developing employees the number one measure of success for an organization, and the service to the customers and the profit that the company derives would be side effects of successfully developing the employees to their full potential. So it's a very, very interesting change of focus for an organization. The imagination is if we focus on the bottom line, then everything will work itself out. The truth is actually much more complicated than that. So let me give you a very specific case study of this. So I was in Silicon Valley giving a talk to an audience of CEOs about money and motivation, and I brought up this strategy as one of the alternatives to using greed as a motivator. And the host of the talk, we were actually holding it at his company, started nodding and smiling as I went on and on about developing employees being the number one goal. And the walls of the conference room that we were in were papered with posters about the learning process and how people grow and develop and how processes improve. Now, this was an engineering company. And what they engineered was, if you think about a camera that rotates, like a closed-circuit television camera or something like that that's going to record security footage. Well, somewhere in there, there's a little motor that turns the camera. Well, it turns out that if you have a camera that's moving and you stop it from moving, the natural thing it wants to do is wobble. Same thing if you start a camera from a dead stop and you start to turn it, it wants to wobble. And so getting a camera to come smoothly to a stop without wobbling is actually a fairly tricky engineering task. And this company excelled at it because they spent a tremendous amount of time and energy focusing on developing their employees. So they had budget for training that everyone took every year. They had the managers were very much like coaches, working with people on their personal goals and their development plans and what their future held for them as a career inside or outside the company. And so the people were, first of all, very, very loyal to the organization. They wouldn't want to leave to go somewhere else where they weren't going to learn and develop as much, even if they were offered more money, unless they really, really, really needed the money. It's much, much better experience to be an employee who's valued in that way than someone who's perceived as a cog in a machine. So anyway, this guy was very, very much into that, and his organization was extremely successful as a result. It was a small company, privately held company, and their competitors really just couldn't keep up with the pace of innovation that they were moving at. Some other examples of client organizations that I've worked with and I've seen are the Reprint Mint in Berkeley or World Pantry in San Francisco. It doesn't actually matter what industry you're in, right? So in an engineering company, it makes obvious sense. The Reprint Mint actually glues paper to wood, and they absolutely focus on developing their employees as their number one goal. And World Pantry is a food distributor, and they do exactly the same thing. So it's not just technology companies that can benefit from this strategy. Any company can. Some more traditional examples would be Mary Kay Cosmetics. It was very much part of Mary Kay's vision for her organization and the people in it. And also IBM, interestingly, used to be really, really good at this. I don't know if they still are. But the managers were trained to help the employees develop long-term goals that didn't necessarily involve them being part of IBM. Very important point. So it doesn't matter whether the employee wants to open a puppy shop or become a professional skier or whatever. You really focus on the employee meeting his or her long-term goals and then use their experience in the company as a strategy for helping them to fulfill those goals. What is it they need to grow and develop in order to be able to meet their goals? As opposed to how are we going to grow and develop the employee so that he or she can meet our goals, which is the natural tendency, but is not motivating for the employee, whereas the former is. Makes very logical sense. Now, of course, we want to give the employee strategies and goals that serve the company, but it's always done in this strategy in the context of the goals the employee has for him or herself. Good. Some excellent resources I would recommend for learning more about this strategy. One is the book Multipliers, How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter by my friend Liz Weissman. And also Tom Rausch of Leadership Beyond Limits does this with very large consulting organizations internationally. So those are two people who really understand this strategy very well and could help you implement it. Actually, one or both of them should be in the interview series coming up in the next couple months here. We'll be able to pick their brains about how they implement this strategy in client organizations and what the actual effects are, the measured effects of really focusing on developing employees as the #1 goal of the company. Good. So that's the growth and development strategy. More to come.